Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again for the second session of Let's Talk Google Apps. My name is Trevor Beck. I'm the Google Evangelist here at MacEwan University, and I am joined by a couple other colleagues of mine that are going to be helping us out to demonstrate some of the things that you can do with Sheets. Now today when we talk about Sheets, everyone's used to doing columns and adding numbers and stuff like that, multiplying, subtracting, dividing. What I want to show you is that Google Sheets has a lot of other uses past that, past the basic spreadsheet of adding numbers. Whoops, someone, and there's an echo there, of course. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to start off by I'm going to have the guys introduce themselves, please. So we'll start with John there, if you want to unmute yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm John from MacEwan University. I'm the lab supervisor in the computer science department, and I teach a course in educational technology in which we teach about, very superficially right now, about Google Apps. I hope to do more with the in the Sheets, the add-ons that may be talked about later, especially things like Doctopus.
Excellent. Okay, and Terry, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Trevor. My name is Terry Cordy. I'm from Edmonton Public Schools. I am the Technology Integration Planning and Support Team Coordinator. So I'm a teacher, and there's a group of 5 teachers in Edmonton Public that go and work with all 200 of our schools. And one of the things we do is training on how to best use Google Apps with their students in their classroom, and part of it is also how we use Google Apps as an administrative tool within central office and everything else. So we've been on Google Apps since 2011 and on full Google Apps with email and everything since 2013. So it's been, so we're a ways along on the journey, but lots to learn and everything keeps changing, so that makes it fun.
And I'd just like to point out that in the beginning of March, there was actually an Alberta Google conference for people using Google Apps for education. I went to it last year and met so many people who are within the Edmonton Public School Board that have been using this for years and have all these cool tips and tricks and stuff. So if anyone's interested, you can contact me afterwards, or just Google Alberta Google Apps for Education Summit, and you'll be able to register for that. Really great resource, lots of cool people to meet, and you can use your professional development money for that. So, you know, make use of that for a while. Okay, as we go along, if anyone has any questions, what we're going to be doing is actually sharing a Google Doc with you. And the Google Doc is located at macewan.ca/letstalkq, meaning let's talk questions. If you have any questions, it's a shared document. Anyone can get in there. Just go ahead and type in whatever questions you want, and we'll periodically look back and forth at that document and see what questions people have. Okay, so let's start first. Quick review. If you didn't get a chance yesterday, we did information on how to do collaborative and how to share documents. Specifically on the collaboration side, how to make use of comments and track changes, which is a really powerful collaborating function of the Google Apps Suite. In a second, I'll also demonstrate some of that in a spreadsheet that we're going to be using. The nice thing about when you use those comments and stuff, emails are generated by Google, so they come directly to your inbox with a link to the document that it's referring to. So it's really handy for that kind of follow-up information and for tracking what's going on within your document. One other thing I want to mention too is privacy. A lot of people always ask about what is the privacy policy with Google Apps and stuff. It has been vetted by MacEwan University. It is secure as anything can be. So it's also the choice that we kind of suggest people make use of instead of products like Dropbox, which haven't been vetted yet. So if you are using Dropbox, Dropbox gives you 2 gigs of space. On Google Apps for Education, you get unlimited storage space. Both you as a faculty member as well as the students have all sorts of space that they can make use of. So if you're using Dropbox, take a look at Google Drive. It's a good alternative. That's the policy. All right, so what I want to do right now is I'm going to share a spreadsheet, and we're going to talk about functions. Now, functions within a spreadsheet are specified or specific commands, I guess you'd say, that do just 1 or 2 items. And so what I'm going to show you is some of the common ones that I always like to show people that can really get your data together and get it all fixed up. So can you guys see my shared screen okay? All right, thank you. I'm going to pin this now. So here, if we take a look at, I've got a list of names. We've all had this situation where we get this huge list of 500 names, and we see that whoever's entered it in, sometimes the first name or the last name has not been capitalized. And so you're asked by your manager, hey, can you go in and capitalize all 600 names? Well, you could do that, but Google offers a function called proper. And proper pretty much means exactly that. Capitalize each word in a string. Now, each word in whatever cell that we end up pointing to. So in this case, I'm going to say, you know what, I want to show the proper for B2, because that's the first cell. Oops, let's try A2, because that's this information I'm talking about. A2. Notice Bobby Garrett has now been capitalized. And what I can do is what's called a fill down, where if I click this cell, select this cell, click on here and drag down, it will fill down the information. And you'll notice this is A2, but now it's A3, now it's A4. Google will automatically do that numbering for you, understanding what it needs to do. So now we have this whole, could be a list of 600. All of a sudden, this whole list is completely done and it's all been capitalized. The next thing that often happens is I need you to put in a first name and a last name. Split them up because I want to send out a merge letter, and I want to do this letter that has Dear Bobby, not Dear Bobby Garrett. So now what typically happens is people go in, highlight Bobby, copy it over this, highlight Garrett, copy over here. Well, again, we can use something called split. And a split does exactly what it says. It's going to split based on a particular delimiter or a particular thing that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to start with E2. That is the text that I'm looking for in that column. The delimiter is a space. So anytime I throw in any kind of text that I want it to look for, I have to put it in quotation marks. And then do you want to split by each? Sometimes you may not want to do that because the person might have two names or two last names or something, but I always, for this case, just say sure. Now watch what happens. I'll do the same thing where I do a fill down, and there's the name has been split between two columns. So I now have it capitalized properly. I now have the name split between two columns. We're all familiar with how to go in and add cells in. Right? We've got the sum function. I can do 13 plus 22 equals whatever. One of the things, though, that we can do instead, though, is we can actually add in text together as two different parts. So, for example, when we look at the area code and the phone number, now these are not numbers that we're going to add up, so we're going to treat them like text. I want to bring these two together. And to do that, I'm going to use the AND or the ampersand. So first of all, I start off, and every time we work in these cells, we have to do equal, so because the cell is going to be equal to a specific formula. It's going to be, I'll scroll back to the side here, 403 and this number here. Now watch what happens when I put the two together. It does combine the numbers together, but the problem is that I'm missing a dash in there. Well, Google's doing exactly what I've asked it to do. So I actually need to go in here and say, hey, put in a space. Remember, we have that those quotations, another ampersand. So there's three parts to this formula. There's the contents of cell B2, a space, sorry, contents of cell B2, ampersand, the space, ampersand C2. And there we can see my numbers are all together. I'll just close this a little bit so we can see it better. And then what I'm going to do is the fill down again. And all our numbers, oh, I put a space in. I don't want a space. I want to put a dash in there. There we go. Just do that quick fill down again, and it's done. So notice, just within a few seconds, once you get really fast in this, I can use those three functions. I can use the proper, I can use the split, and I can use the ampersand to start taking our data and manipulate it and making it the way I want to, without having to do the whole copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste thing. Guys, do you have any comments about that or questions? No? Okay.
You're talking to us?
Yes, I'm talking to you guys.
Talking to me? No, yeah, we use that. You've taught me a couple things here. I always used concatenate, a different function, instead of the ampersand, but the ampersand is way quicker. But now, when am I going to ever get to say concatenate?
I know.
Yeah, and then we actually split function like within your domain. So within our domain, when people fill out a form, for example, it automatically collects their Edmonton Public email address. Then you can use the split function to break out their first and last name right from there. So that's, yeah, those three things are golden when you're starting to work with especially lists and collecting the names and data.
Well, the best part too of that is that you can, when your boss says, I need you to take these 1,000 names and I need you to capitalize and split them, and you go and you say, that's all day. I'm going to work from home so I can focus. It's going to be all day to get all that done. And then, you can go home and do that. Not that I'm saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's just an option for everybody.
Just blew my cover.
I'm sorry, man. So that's, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of different functions, and not to say that this doesn't exist in Google, or sorry, in Microsoft Excel, because some of these functions do. But when you start using this kind of stuff, when there's three of us working together, I could actually be looking after one set of data, Terry could be looking after another set of data, John could be looking after another set of data, which really makes it kind of neat, because we could be on that same document but within different sheets, doing and adding different pieces of information. While we're talking about us accessing it, I never did get around to doing that. Let me go back and screen share, and then we're going to show you the collaboration side of things I was talking about earlier. So on my screen here, this could be a document that I have. Terry, do you mind highlighting a piece of text there and inserting a comment? So. Sure. As people are making use of these documents, I could be working on this during the day, Terry could be working on this at night. Terry can go in at any point in time and insert a comment. Now, if you were watching yesterday, you'll notice it's pretty much the same thing. But all that happens is that Terry goes in, highlights a piece of text, inserts a comment about that piece of text.
Okay, it should be there.
We are waiting. Oh, something. Here we go. There it is. So this actually shows up on the screen here, but what's also really nice about it is because quite often we're not working on the file at the same time, I actually will get an email from Terry saying, hey, is he still registered? There's a link I can click on that will automatically, from my email client, bring me back right here into this document. The one thing I really like about comments in here is if I have a number of documents open, so you notice there's a couple of tabs here. Sometimes I have documents that scroll forever and ever, and I'll get an email and someone will say, can you fix this? And I'll have to email back saying, I have no idea what you're talking about, can you let me know that? But because we're going through here, the comment actually highlights the cell that Terry has highlighted, so I know exactly what piece of information he's talking about. I can reply to that and say, yes, I booked him in, booked him in, reply that, so Terry will get an email, and I hit resolve, which means that issue is now put away. For those of you that weren't here yesterday, any of these comments that we do live with the document. It's part of the history of the document. As long as this document lives, those comments are going to live with that as well. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is conditional formatting. Conditional formatting allows us to do some color stuff with documents. And I talked yesterday, one of the coolest things about these collaborative pieces is that you can take a document, share it with anyone, whether they're on a mobile device or with somewhere else. And one of the things that first thing I thought of when I was playing with this is a scavenger hunt. The worst part about a scavenger hunt is there's one piece of paper and 5 people. And then those 5 people go rushing up to someone and say, hey, have you got a penny from 1972? Which kind of freaks out whoever the person is. The way you can take advantage of this is someone can quickly enter in all the items into a spreadsheet. And you can even use, if you're using a mobile device, you can even use your voice recognition software to insert those things, so you don't have to manually type on that little phone or anything. You just say the words and enter it in right away. So now I've got this spreadsheet and I've shared it with the 5 people in my group. We can go anywhere. We don't have to be all stuck in the same area. Everyone can just go wherever they need to, and at any point in time I can go in and check to see who's updated stuff. Guys, while you're there, do you mind just throwing in yes and no's, just as you on the assumption that you've gone through and you've... Actually, I'm going to replace your yeses with Ys just for consistency's sake. Sorry, my fault. So we could go through and fill this whole thing out. John's working on that cell, so I won't do that. And after this whole thing gets filled out, it gets a little complicated because you can't really see what's where. I mean, the no's are there. You kind of have to search for a no. You have to search for a yes. What are we still looking for? So there's a lot of hunting and pecking. Well, with conditional formatting, I can go in here and I can say, hey, you know what? Anytime the text contains a no, because that's an issue, that's something I'm still looking for, make the background color red. Now it's really easy for me to go through and say, hey, here's what I still need. All these ends here that are still open up, those are items that we haven't found yet. I can go in and make those changes. And again, because it's a live document, it automatically updates for everybody. Does that make sense to everyone else besides me? I see the guys nodding, so I'm going to say that's yes. Last thing I want to demonstrate is filtering. Filtering is a great function when you have a document. In this case, what I've done is I've actually used a command here called import HTML. That's excuse me. That's gone out to our website where we have admission deadline dates. So it's actually pulling this stuff live from our website and placing it into the spreadsheet, which is better than my doing a copy and paste, because the next time I open this document, it's going to refresh, take a look, see what things have changed. I don't have to worry about it. Any changes that are reflected on the main site automatically get reflected here. Now, as a student, I want to find out what I can take. And I mean, that's kind of a pain to go through this whole list here and go, well, no, I can't take that. No, I can take that. Can I take that? Moving back and forth. I want to take police studies. No, I can't take that. So what you can do is we can filter the information out. By highlighting the column or columns that you're interested in filtering on, I select the filter function here, which brings a little pop-up window or a drop-down menu. Everything that's in this column is contained in this menu as well. So what I'm going to say is, you know what? Get rid of the no intake. So don't show me the ones I can't show up in, and just get rid of the blank ones just for the heck of it. Show me everything else. And when it's done, all I'm left with is the dates that the programs that are still open. Now the information hasn't been erased, it hasn't been deleted or anything like that. When you're using a filter function, you're just basically saying, just show me this. Because when I go to turn the filter off, there's our information already back there. Okay, that's my demo for this. Any questions from you guys? I'm not seeing showing up on our document. Okay, so those are some very basic spreadsheet functions, and they're really really good ones to become a power user in, because those are the kind of stuff that you're going to be using a lot and can get a lot of stuff done with it. Terry, do you want to add anything, or maybe give us a demonstration of some of the stuff that you guys are doing?
Sure. A couple of them will be sort of an actual demonstration of some of the same things you're doing, and a couple of them are different. I pulled up a few in advance, and I'll just share my screen here. We'll do this one. Okay, you're seeing that, Trevor? Okay. Okay, great. All right, so some different examples. So, our schools are, every school in Edmonton Public is it's kind of are the ones we work with. So some are elementary schools. Here's one from an elementary school that simply uses a running tracker. So they used to have, and they might still have, a poster up on the wall of their school that shows which classes and which rooms have ran the most laps around the gym for the year. So the nice thing about this, when I looked at, if you look into sharing, you can see Carla made the actual document, but she shared it with at least 9 other people on staff. And each of those teachers can go in and manually put in the number of laps they run. They would have this bookmarked somewhere or saved in an email, and they go in and, when February is over, they're going to go into February and actually add their number. And then what that does is it will plot those automatically on a chart. This chart that's created, it's not different than Excel, where you can say, any one of these charts, You can edit and say, okay, which cells is it referring to? You can also publish the chart, copy it, if you want to insert it into a Google slide or into a Google Doc, or put it into your website. So it's a real simple example of a line chart, and this elementary school that's using it to track their running. So that's a spreadsheet where multiple users can collaborate and each enter some data. You can see where a lot of schools would also use this for, if you have a group project in science and the students are all collecting data on something. Each student could actually just go into the spreadsheet and they can put in the data for the different days for whatever they're tracking, have it automatically generate a chart. So, I always found when I'm learning the Google apps and whether any kind of technology, whether it's Photoshop or Premiere or Flash or Google Apps, whatever it is, a lot of times what gets me hooked on it is using something for fun at the beginning, trying something out that's kind of just interesting for me. So one of the ways on staff that we're doing it during Roll Up the Rim, we've been doing this since 2010, and this is a Roll Up the Rim survey. So while spreadsheets, let's go back to the stats. So while spreadsheets allow you to gather data, I'm just going to hide this one column because it kind of makes it messy. Spreadsheets are great because they allow you to gather data together, but forms combined with spreadsheets are really powerful, because then this form that we create here, quite simply, and that's for a whole other day, allows users to go in and put in their put in their responses, and they can be any kind of response. This is like SurveyMonkey or something like that, and it's submitted, and then those results go directly onto that one went right at the bottom here. So sorry, try again. Large, that one ended up right in there, and then those things can be actually tracked live, on a graph and embedded on a spreadsheet or whatever. So this is an example with Roll Up the Rim. We use the same example, though, for our math intervention instrument that we used across every student from grades 2 to 9 in the fall. We used a Google survey. Some schools printed those surveys because it makes a fillable form. And then we gathered all that data from all 200 schools, brought it back into a sheet, had it automatically create graphs like this. So whether it's something really simple, like collecting data on who wins a coffee or not, or collecting data from 80,000 students, it handles it. The sheets don't have any limitations that way, or we haven't run into them if there were some that way. Okay, so another example of how we use it, and this is a bit small, but what the gist of this is an example of how multiple people can collaborate on one spreadsheet. We're not using any mathematical formulas here. We are using conditional formatting, like Trevor talked about, to highlight the S's, which are sessions run by our HR department. X's are ones run by our technology department. And so the green and the blue are automatically in there. So as soon as I add an X to this column, for example, it's going to turn that green. Right? If I added an S for HR, that's going to turn that blue. I won't do that because I don't want to be having someone to do a PT scheduler session in next November. So really good example, quick example. We could use this as well. I'll use a formula to count how many S's there are, how many X's there are, etc. But really simple example of how we use this to help organize things. Another example we used a lot is registering. So registering, not so much for, you have your own registration system for PD, maybe. We use a lot of Google Forms to do registrations for everything. Any kind of PD put on, any kind of sessions, whether it's technology training sessions, Google App sessions. This one here is our community practice session. So the forms are very simple to make. Again, you can have this shows you a few of the different types of questions you can embed. You can embed photos or videos into it. And then we've had an optional section here for someone could give us a bit of a survey response if they wanted to. That data, this is what the editing looks like, so it's really easy to reorganize questions, to move them around. You can see the different kinds of questions you can put in. Again, that's a whole other day. But the data actually ends up in a spreadsheet, right? And this is where we use the filtering. So for example, if there's a whole bunch of data, 130 some people have replied to this one by filling out the form. We asked them lots of different questions, which day they're going to go to. The really nice thing about using forms this way is it actually creates some automatic summaries of responses. So that one isn't showing up because there's just too many different schools but we can see that of the people who registered, at a glance, 64% were teachers. Okay, we can see which grade levels they taught. So this allows us to go into our sessions and start to say, okay, we're going to need 2 rooms for the Division 2 teachers, 1 room for Division 4. A little bit of an indication here as far as expertise level people figured. So again, a little benefit. So we have a lot of people using spreadsheets, but the things that really got our teachers and staff into using spreadsheets was Google Forms and the ability to gather information that way. So, and I think you mentioned this earlier, you had done this other session, but this is the type of thing you can do with it, is you can automatically create, by using that split function you mentioned, Trevor, you can actually go in and automatically generate these certificates like that. Okay, and embed those forms that are created into, this is a Google site, you could also embed it into Moodle or any other kind of website. Couple other really quickly. So this is a little more complex example of a planning document using conditional formatting. So we used a Google Sheet to organize and implement our entire Google Mail transition. So we had an external party, a consulting group they're based out of Ohio, but their consultants, technical consultants we worked with were set all over the US, about 4 different people, and every week we'd meet through a Google Hangout. And we would all look at this same, not this particular, this is a different one, but we would look at a spreadsheet like this so that we could actually plan out the different events and the different pieces in the migration. Hundreds of different individual tasks. It's a massive project, but this was one way that we all had our eyes on the exact same document. This is an example of one that is actually a, any kind of general task here. So for example, in infrastructure, these are the steps in our schools. This is complete in most cases because all our schools have Wi-Fi now. But this was the steps if they didn't to get these things done. And then as we put them in, we'd actually plan in 2013-14 in January. That's where those are going to happen. If they actually were going to happen, not then, but in. If we had to delay that till April, we'd move that over to April, and we'd move our ordering of the switches over, so on and so forth. So I wanted to show you this just as an example of you can see all the different tabs along the bottom. You can use Sheets for pretty complex tasks. Another nice feature here is the ability to add drop-down lists. So here you can see that site assessment, I don't have to type completed in there. I can pick from a list, and where that comes from, whoops, get out of there for a sec, that's called data validation. And that's a whole other thing, but data validation is like conditional formatting, except you're just saying these are the only things, these items here are the only things that could possibly appear in that list, and also let people pick from that list. So that's a pretty cool feature if you're actually having multiple people fill out a form. And I don't have an example of that per se here, but that also, you can also, if you're worried about having a form, and a common thing with collaborating as well, John and Trevor are going to go in, they're going to mess up that whole column that I just worked on for a week and getting these dates all right because their area is another area, but what if they accidentally click on something? Well, you can lock down certain areas, just like in Excel. You can lock down columns, you can lock down certain cells or rows and say only, we all have access to view it, only I can edit column C, only Trevor can edit column F, and only John can edit column G or whatever, so you can do all that as well. How am I doing on time, Trevor? I want to leave a little bit of, make sure I leave some time for John.
We're looking at, am I back on? Oh yeah, so it's about 12:30 now, so maybe one more thing and then, or if you're done, that's great, then.
I think I'm going to be done there. I'm interested to hear what John has to say.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to address a couple of things there that you talked about, and so specifically when Google Forms is available to MacEwan. However, what I would recommend, if you're doing a form that's collecting any FOIPable information, so at the moment that you have a name or a phone number or an email address, we prefer that you come through web services to do that. There's a couple of reasons. One thing is we really haven't had time to train people on how to make use of the forms properly, and it's very, very easy to publish information out that should not be published out. So my hopes are that down the road we'll be doing some training and stuff, and then be able to give people access to go ahead and do those. The other thing is that there's lots of stuff that can happen on the back side. As Terry was mentioning, people can fill out forms and then a certificate can be created, or an email can be sent off, or all that kind of stuff. Those are more advanced add-on functionality that gets that we can incorporate, and it's not part of the basic Google Forms or the Google spreadsheets. And some of them are a little bit tricky to set up. So especially if you've never done it before, there's always a pitfall or something that maybe you think, oh yeah, I'll just do this, it'll work, no problem. And then down the road you go, wow, if I had only done this a different way, this would have went much better. So I'm sure Terry's run into that too, where there's, I call it running with scissors. You give people a little bit of knowledge and they get really excited and they go running out to do all this, and then after a while they kind of fall on the scissors and go, oh, that didn't turn out the way I wanted to. So, just taking the time to come talk to us in web services, and so we can make sure that the product you get is going to be the best product. John, do you have anything you'd like to share with us?
Well, right now we're just using Sheets at a very superficial basis. Next week is our first lab in our EdTech course. It's for students in the Education Transfer Program. And what we're having them do in the first week is do a mark sheet. So we give them a mark sheet that has names and assignments and marks, and then they're supposed to do the basic calculations. How much did they get for assignments, some if-then calculations, do a VLOOKUP, and do some statistics reporting. So how many Fs did they have, how many Cs, etc. So it's really elementary right now, and it almost has to be because most of our students have never used a spreadsheet, so we're still doing very basic information at it. I hope to in the future, we're just redesigning this course to have Google Apps to have a bigger focus in it. Probably can't be too big. We could do the whole course with Google Apps, but there's other things that we have to include as well. So we're still looking to the future, and what you've shown me, Terry, already has given me some ideas for the future.
The brain's starting to spin. That's how it works.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I don't think there's anything else that I want to go and go any farther than this, because I mean this is a good starting point. The things that we talked about today, and hopefully as we go, as I said, we'll be doing more of these sessions. We'll get more into those different functions. We'll get more into the different ways of using the tools as we go along. If you've weren't able to catch the presentation from yesterday, the flyer that got you to this page here has a link to the presentation from yesterday. It's already been archived, so by all means, please visit that one. Tomorrow at the same time, we're going to be looking at Google Slides. So the alternative, Google's alternative to PowerPoint presentations, but so much cooler, and there's so many extra features that versus a static file that Google brings to the game. And the other thing we want to do is also, slides aren't just for doing PowerPoint presentations. There's some other different cool ways of making use of the tool that you can tap into, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Guys, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you if they have any questions and want to do a follow-up or anything?
If you Google Terry Cordy, you'll likely find me, or I'm on Twitter at tcordy, T-K-O-R-T-E. Yeah, and looking forward to seeing what kind of comes out of all the different Google Apps things happening. I know with U of A and Grant MacEwan, both on Google Apps, I know that we're looking forward to having teachers come into our school district that have already a head start. And eventually, we're going to have students that have gone through Edmonton Public, from grade 7 to 12 and on through university and right back in, and this will be old hat to them by the time we're in a few years here.
John?
Yes, at Grant MacEwan, people can reach me in the computer science department, Colson J6 at MacEwan.ca, and I'm obviously can be found in our phone book directory.
Okay, and Of course, my email address is beckt@macewan.ca. But if you're looking for some resources and stuff to get you going, let me just show you our screen here. macewan.ca/Google. We've basically have a website that we've created. Basic information there. This video here is one thing I always make people watch. It shows you how to do all the collaboration kind of stuff. It's a very short 2-minute video. There's other information about our privacy and security, why we chose Google Apps, but the big thing for you is Google tutorials. And the first thing I want to point out here is Google Drive Essential Training. It's through lynda.com. As MacEwan staff and faculty, and students, we all have access to that, so you can go in and see the whole video. It goes through each of the different apps, gives you some really good information, and takes things a little bit farther than obviously what we're going to be doing in 35, 45 minutes here. The other thing while you're there is Tips for Google Apps, which is a blog that I'm running. And what we're doing is taking obviously some advanced tips or just different ways of taking that information and applying them. So for example, we don't have access to YouTube, but the students can store their videos on Google Drive. Google will then take that video and still create a stream very much like a YouTube video. So you don't actually have to download it to view it. You can actually sit there and as an instructor look at your students' work. There's a whole bunch of other cool little tips and stuff like that, so by all means please take the time to take a look through there and see what else is available. Again, thank you gentlemen for joining me. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, and as well as for everyone else, hopefully you'll be joining us tomorrow as well. Thanks very much for